Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is honored to be presented again this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. For more than 48 years, the Townsend family of dealerships has been a locally owned company built on service and connection with its customers. And their experienced team can walk you through the car buying process side by side, from test drive to service oil changes and beyond. Townsend goes through a rigorous vetting process to make sure that every pre-owned vehicle adheres to quality standards. And right now, there's plenty on the lot to choose from in various makes and models. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. Coast Brewing has been making high-quality beer in the South Carolina Lowcountry for so long, it's easy to take the availability and the quality of its beer for granted. It's sincerely become part of Charleston, just as its former taproom, which was really a few taps on the side of a walk-in cooler, became sort of a community hub for a pint and a chat. That availability, quality, and community focus has been the driving force for co-owner Jaime Tenny, who, along with her husband David Merritt, have just been head down making beer, selling beer, and helping welcome and anchor a growing beer scene in the state for more than a decade. But as any entrepreneur knows, all that day in, day out hustle to support and build a business carries its own price and then some. After many challenges, Coast is poised on the edge of a new phase, about to open a new taproom and production building later this year. And that is worth raising a pint to. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Jaime.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm inside a working brewery today, Southern Fork listeners. So actually, Jaime is hosting me here at Coast Brewing inside the historic Navy Yard, which was super quiet until a few years ago and now is a hub of activity here in North Charleston, South Carolina. But I've been coming here to Coast for a long time and I haven't been in a while. And of course, when I drove up, things are different.
And they're changing every day.
So how long have you been in operation?
We have been in operation since 2007. So we're 15 plus years at this point. Prior to that, though, my husband was a brewer for, 10 or 12 years at that point, and I was heading up the Pop the Cap organization for South Carolina. So our work with beer and in the brewing industry in South Carolina goes back even farther than that. So, yeah, we're feeling pretty old at this point.
I also saw your son out there working.
Yes.
And he was 10 years old when you started this brewery. So
that's right.
I think Pop the Cap is a really great place to begin because I think people outside the industry might not be aware of why all of a sudden it seems like there are breweries everywhere.
Right.
But Pop the Cap was an initiative that happened state by state. Am
Correct.
I correct in
Yes.
that?
Yep. Yes. Every state has their own alcohol laws.
Yeah. And so why was it important to really focus on that in order to have a brewery scene? Can you just give us the very clear explanation of that?
Yeah, because you were just so limited, so it really, just wasn't worth it. My husband was working, he had been at South End, which was a brew pub, the only brew pub at that time, and then he was at Palmetto, which was the only microbrewery at the time. Surprising there was even two, because you could only make beer under 6% alcohol, and it was a stranglehold on creativity and all the things you can do. So we said, okay, if we want to do this, we're going to have to try to change that and make it welcoming. Otherwise, it's not worth it creatively, and it's not worth it, financially, because you're just, that's like going to a pizza place and you can only make one type of pizza.
Right. Right.
So, which, granted, it's a good pizza. I like a plain pie, but,
you need some pepperoni.
Sometimes you want a pepperoni, and the pepperoni was illegal here. So yeah, I started that in 2005 with the only goal at the time was to raise the alcohol cap, which we did. 2 weeks after we signed the lease to this building, pretty sure it was going to pass, but I held my breath for that time. So February 2007, the first of the few laws that the group passed went into action, and so we went for it.
And you created the first IPA in South Carolina,
yeah,
right?
A couple of firsts for us. First IPA, several styles, I should just say in general. First organic beer, just a few firsts that David primarily was really wanting to brew. And again, before that was illegal. You couldn't make an IPA because an IPA is over 6% generally beer. So, it just wasn't an option prior.
Well, and Hop Art is still on the market today. It's distributed, Trader Joe's.
I know, right?
That's pretty sweet, right?
Statewide Hop Art.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And give us a little bit of culinary background on the development of that and working with the hops to really accentuate it. And why do you think it has endured?
I think it's endured because, and I think what the art part of that is referring to is the balance of hops and malt. So while it is hoppy, we use 5 to 7 varieties, and they sort of change. And although we want it to taste like a hop art, we don't always want it to be exactly the same beer. So there might be a little more of a hop variety that is a little more floral this time. Next time it might be a tiny bit more piney. People who have drank it for 15 years can usually be like, hey, I really liked that last batch. It had a little more whatever character they like. But for the most part, it always tastes like a very balanced beer. So that means it's malty and hoppy. We are not about being overly aggressively hopped in that beer. It has to be a balance. And that's why it's approachable to a lot of people that go, oh, it's hoppy? Oh, I don't know. And then they try it and they're like, oh, that's good.
Well, it's good because it's flavorful and it's refreshing. I came to Coast for the Kolsch. It was a wonderful beer at a time when we didn't understand anything. We didn't understand the fine art in a lot of ways of lager in the South. We just knew about the big boys Bud and Miller Lite and whatever. And so it was wonderful to try that particular style of beer that was light, refreshing, went with this environment, but yet had flavor.
That's exactly the point of that beer. And the funny story about that is that beer is my husband went to Germany, fell in love with this style. I, of course, was not on that trip. And he comes back. He's like, we have to brew a Kolsch. We picked some up at the grocery store from Germany, and I'm thinking, bad idea. These are all like cardboard. They were not traveling well. So freshly made locally, where it does not have to travel overseas, right? Oh my gosh, it does not get any better. So that is definitely a gateway type of beer.
It is. It really, really is. And you're a behind the scenes person. We were just talking about photography, and I've interviewed you multiple times over the years, and we always have this moment every time I have to take a photo of you or get a photo from you. You're very much a behind-the-scenes person, but you had to lead basically kind of a movement in order. How did you reach down into yourself and find that courage and think that it was important enough to make that uncomfortable moment for yourself?
Yeah. I think I just pulled my inner New Jersey out, which is where I grew up on the Jersey Shore. So I definitely have that. And I'm a redhead. I'll put up a fight when I need to. I just choose not to most of the time. I'd much rather go with the flow. But there's times you need to. And that was definitely a time where I needed to rally. Politics in the South, and especially was not my background in any way. So it was definitely, just like the beer industry, heavily male dominated. I learned some lessons from that. I don't like politics. I will not ever get involved in them. But it was a interesting learning curve for me in my life to go, oh, well, this is how things work. But with that and a lot of help from all kinds of people, whether it's, several politicians behind the scenes who saw that it was the right thing to do, some lobbyists who saw that, it needed to be done, and it rallied, and it happened pretty quickly. If you,
it really did.
In the scheme of things, it happened pretty quickly. It was a lot of work, and it was kind of fast and furious, but it was the beginning. We're still, a bit far behind, even to North Carolina. We still don't have the equal laws they do when it comes to beer, but we've come a long way in 17 years since Pop the Cap was founded. So,
but also, it's a real honest to goodness industry here.
It sure is. It's grown a lot.
South Carolina, and you were an anchor of the Charleston beer community and a brewery district. Now we have an association. Yep. Can you tell me some of the surprises that you maybe were hoping this was going to happen with this work?
Yeah.
But something that's really kind of surprised you about that?
No, not really. It's kind of what I envisioned should happen. If you ever, you like food, you like travel, all that. When you go somewhere and there's one or two breweries, while that's great, it's not, you really want to see more of that. So we always like to say travel to Asheville where you have great selection. So I always envision that happening here. I mean, I feel like a good food city should absolutely have a good beer scene and lots of breweries doing their thing. It's needed. And no, I'm not really surprised by it. I do, there's still some work to be done, and there's always remaining kind of on the offensive for anything that might come after your industry, because there's always this threat of a law change backwards, and you want to be moving
We've
forward.
been seeing that.
I know. So you want to be moving progressively forward and certainly not losing ground. But as far as the community, I'm a little behind. We've been head deep in construction and just kind of getting our next phase. I'll still hear of a brewery, and I'm like, I had no idea they existed. And then I'm like, how
see that all the time.
Am I?
Well, and I mean, you're in that, but I'm also the person that's supposed to know, and we're all just one we're single people doing our jobs.
Right.
And so somebody's like, yeah, you haven't ever been out to my brewery. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know you existed. And they were like, we've been in business for 2 years. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't know.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I guess that's a plus, is that, for a while there was, if you got one a year, so you knew all about it. But now a few a year, you're like, well, I'm not keeping up with that. So one of these days when our construction's over, we're doing a beer tour, and we're going to every brewery in Charleston we have not been to. So that should be fun.
Well, the construction has been the longest construction project I believe ever. I've seen in years.
Yeah.
So what is the next phase for Coast here?
Yeah. We're close, within, I want to say, weeks to short months, to opening a new space. It's half production, or I should say packaging, and half open to the public. So we'll have a proper tap room.
We've had a cool tap room here. It was a special place.
It's I like when people say, well, it's like in a very busy garage or something.
Yes,
You're like, well, yes, we are an operating brewery, and it's tough space wise to carve out a space for people to be able to come in, and it's always like, oh gosh, So that's why we've only been open a few hours a week just to get through this. But the new space will have air conditioning, proper seats that don't move. I mean, cash register not on wheels. It should be a wild time over there, and way more hours. So and food.
You've had food at special events here.
We've had food trucks, but we will have our own small kitchen. I grapple with that because I kind of eat a little bit different than most people. I only get meat from local farms. I mean, And I've really, that's been my hope to be able to transfer that over, you know, grass-fed only, but with the economy and I don't know. So this is going to be a real twister for me on how I can accomplish having, you know, local, small, quality food menu, but also make it stuff that, you know, I want to eat myself. That's kind of the goal. So,
and to have your own stamp, you know, the coast feel about
which
that.
we've always done. And we've, you know, my husband doesn't do the financial side. So he always like, I'm making this beer and that's that. And they're going to like it. And if they don't, too bad, you know, I hope they do, but I like it and that's enough. So we've always kind of done our own thing, done our own styles. We do it our way. So I hope that will continue over. That's the plan.
Yeah. Well, when you first started, there wasn't an option to really have this expansion. So I think a lot of brewers and other people in the culinary professional world think about breweries, for the most part, they make a lot of their money on a tap room.
Correct.
And it's also marketing, and you have 2 line items for that. But you're making fresh beer, you're taking a keg to a tap, and you're serving that beer. But you had to start with the distribution model.
Correct. So when we got this building, we didn't need to think of a tap room because it was illegal. Another thing on the list of things that were illegal in South Carolina. So I'm trying to remember back. It was either 5 or 7 years, maybe 5, where you could not come here, you could not taste a beer, you could not buy a beer, you could so it was just like, why, you know, we have a big fence around the place, like just keep it shut, nobody can come. And then over the years that's, you know, been whittled down. So the new space, maybe not from day one, will have totally different license. We will be having liquor, wine, you know, the whole shebang. So that will be a whole new world for us as well. We're still a brewery, but, you know, I do like other things in life, so.
I want to know what styles you personally drink. Do you have a favorite style? Does it change with the season?
It kind of does change with the season, to be honest. I have gotten away from hoppy beers for the most part. I still have one, but really lagers. Kolsch's not a lager, but it's close enough. Most people think it is. We make a Helles lager that is freaking fantastic. Oktoberfest, any of those kind of less hoppy, either lighter or just malt crispy, have been hitting the spot for me for a couple of years now. So, you know, it's all the setting. It's the food you're having. If I'm having Thai food, I want an IPA. That's just the way it goes. Spicy, you want an IPA. So it really depends. But yeah, generally speaking, I would say our Rye Not Brown, though, is probably my overall favorite beer. We only make it once a year.
I haven't had that except for a couple times because of that.
Quite enjoyable,
release.
Yeah. And that's when fall is here, which means summer's over, so I can breathe again. So it's we should repeat, we're inside a brewery that is not air conditioned. It is also the end of June in Charleston. But this building is solid, and I just think it's super cool mid-century stuff. So yeah, 52.
So what was it originally built for?
Document storage and instrumentation for the Navy. We found some incinerated notices about how they incinerate documents after 18 months. I mean, it was just super cool. We've had people who were served in this building kind of walk us through on how it was set up. And both of our grandparents were in the Navy. So when we walked up here, we didn't even walk inside. When we walked up here, and we were like, this is it. We know it. we knew it at that point.
That's so cool. Well, you're in this big transition, and I've known that it was happening for a long time, and we had talked, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago about doing a podcast, and you said, well, let's wait until the tap room is coming.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. You've invested in this industry, but you've also invested in this culture and this community. What do you still love about it moving forward? Because you've had to fight all kinds of challenges, from daily challenges of no air conditioning, raising your kids here, building a tap room that, you know, you had to put in a water line. I mean, there's just a lot of crazy things here.
It really has. It's been an uphill battle that I'm looking back surprised we didn't quit multiple times, and I'm not joking about that. In fact, my husband is hiking the Appalachian Trail currently because it took a toll. It took a toll. It was a long haul. We've sort of in startup mode for 15 years, if that makes sense. Like, you expect to bust your ass when you're getting a business off the ground. you don't expect it to last for 15 years and for still to be that level of just stress and difficulty. So, owning a small business is tough. Beer's no different. It sounds like it's a blast, but it's actually no different as far as just how hard it is to run a small business. And then you put alcohol and all of the restraints and reports and everything you have to do with that. And it's tough. And you need, turns out, a lot more money than I had ever anticipated. That part, I can't dwell on it because we took the leap. We're going forward. We're doing it. But that's what wakes me up in the middle of the night, that kind of stress level, worry.
And that's one of the questions I was going to ask you at the end. So we've covered that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stress level and worry. And I think a lot of us understand what that startup feeling is. I've definitely had people approach me or say, you should try this, you should try that, you should do a YouTube channel or both. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, I'm doing this.
Yeah,
this is hard.
This is enough.
I'm trying to do an 80s things.
Yeah.
I don't need to do 85. You get attracted, right? Especially as the market is growing around you. You go, what are they doing? Maybe I should think about that. Maybe I should consider that. I know you're very proud of the placemaking that you've done here, that you are here, that you're now in this next phase. And I know that you're very, very proud of your work with Pop the Cap and stuff. What are you proud of about Coast?
Off the top of my head, I would say as being a beer company, uncompromised quality. Mm-hmm. We care too much and work too hard to ever put out an inferior product. And there's a lot to that, ingredients, technique, there's a lot. It's not a single thing, but that is extremely important to us.
Mm-hmm.
When if we ever go around town and taste one of our beers that, is, and we're like at a concert of however, 20,000 people or just out, like not working, try to enjoy. And one of us will be like, man, I don't know, is the tap line, does it need to be clean, like what? And we're troubleshooting right off the bat because that is just unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And or is this can, was this can stored properly, or what's up? Luckily it doesn't happen that often, but it is a big deal. And it's important to us to just really have quality beer, whether you like the style or not, that's on you. But whether what's in that beer itself has to be well-made quality beer, or we have failed at our job. So quality, if I had to choose a top thing, that would be it. And doing it our own way.
And I know that organic is really a focus of your life, but also the business here. Mm-hmm. And that's difficult to do in the beer business.
Sure
we were talking off mic with that. I don't think people understand, like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you couldn't even source on this side of the country very well, right? A lot of the stuff was up north or west coast, right?
Germany, Wisconsin is pretty much where we got, Germany's big on biodynamic organics. That was pretty easy, but you're paying for it, and it is expensive. But you will find that our beer is priced along with other craft beers. So that is just something we eat, and we knew that would be the case. Like, to have it for people be able to buy it and not be put off by, this organic beer costs $3 more. And that was just, we made that decision early on. And while I just try not to overlook those numbers, but it's that important, from the beginning of why organic is important. It's important to us.
And have you seen the options for purchasing expand during your tenure here?
A little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. So there's maybe another malt stir or two. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Organic hops are still really tough to come by, almost impossible. So we had to give that up because we wouldn't be able to have made like 90% of the beer.
So if anybody is listening to this and really wanting to get into an organic niche market, you're suggesting hops, because hops can grow in a lot of areas.
For sure. Powdery mildew is an issue, so I think it's a little more difficult. From what I understand, I'm not a hop farmer, but I think there's room there.
Well, I mean, you're slogging. He's slogging on the Appalachian Trail. He's 25 degrees cooler right now than we are.
He is.
But
and probably a little less stressed out.
Yeah,
for sure he is actually than when he started, and that was the point.
Yeah,
and it turns out there's quite a few breweries on the trail, so.
Yeah.
That has not been the worst part. Rattlesnakes maybe, but not breweries.
Oh, rattlesnakes. Don't even. I don't. Yeah, people are like, the rattlesnakes in North Carolina? I'm like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. What's making you hungry now? What are you really looking forward to?
Looking forward to having the new space open and operating well. Being able to walk in and there's food coming out of the kitchen. People have a pint on the bar top. Our whole crew is a little more comfortable not having to set up the canning machine every time, So working out some kinks that have been long time coming. I'm seeing that hum along. And then honestly, I don't know. Like you were saying earlier, you're just 15 years. That's a long time to be doing this. So I feel like there might be a new phase. I don't know what that means. I'm open to it though. So
you're just feeling things.
I'm just feeling things. Yeah. But I want to see the new space humming along.
Yeah.
Check that off my list and enjoy it. And
then we'll see what's next.
We'll see what's up.
That's right. You ask the question and then you live into the answer, and then it's right there with you. Mm-hmm. I didn't make that up. It's a poet that said that. I don't know why I had to get off on that for 2 seconds. Let me rephrase.
Because it resonates.
What is one aspect of this job that you made for yourself that really meshes like a puzzle piece with an aspect of your natural personality?
Yeah, so I do all of the business financial side, and I am definitely detail, attention-oriented. Being able to say, boom, 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 this adds up, check off, that definitely corresponds to my slightly overzealous trying to be nice to myself. I like to get things done. I like to power through. So part of that, of my position, is it's flexible with time. So I wake up very, very early, and sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and I can go do work. So the flexibility is good for me. I'm definitely better at, I need to do this. I can do it any time and I will power through it and get it done. And then look for the next thing that needs to get done, which I'm working on that because sometimes there shouldn't be a next thing. You can just, enjoy the rest of the evening.
That's true. So, like if you're at high water and you drink a hop art, you shouldn't be thinking about the tap lines. I know that's probably what you're referring to.
Right. Not high water, but similar events. Similar events.
We already covered what's keeping you up at night. It's just the gargantuan heavy lift of doing this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of small businesses, whether you're a toilet manufacturer or, whatever your gig is, just being the owner and being responsible for that is a lot. And I think a lot of people overlook that when they speak to owners of whatever business you're talking about, is just that pressure, that internal pressure. And that's what makes them very good entrepreneurs, because they had that internal desire to do it. But that's also what, while they're trying not to have a heart attack at 50 or whatever, I mean,
I'm giggling, but
it's serious.
Yeah, it's serious.
Yeah, so you got to take care of yourself in the process. So
yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about beer and business, but it's also a food podcast. So the last question I ask of everybody is a dream meal scenario. So one thing I reserve for our Southern Fork guests is something I called a magic picnic basket. Ooh. So with this picnic basket, I can time travel. I can source for you. I can ask anybody to make one more taste of something that you would like. And I know that changes and shifts with time, season, travel, all that stuff. But I'd love to just bring you some of your favorite things that would just help you relax, help you just have a good, enjoyable moment. They don't have to go together. Just some things to bring you life. What can I put in the basket for you?
Well, that's tough and easy at the same time, because I've been blessed to enjoy a lot of good food in my time. And I guess my choices will just be totally based on flavor and not carb count or anything else. No. They are just what are the top cream of the crop things I would put in my picnic basket. I would do Bob Cook's, either just charcuterie, salon, I don't care, meats, or artisan meat share, like Italian sandwich. That would clearly be in there. Sandwich. Clearly be in there.
We're never going to give up our love for artisan meat share.
I know. I know it. So that was literally the first thing that popped in my mind. Also because the picnic, I could just picture it wrapped in white paper, like sitting in the basket. Yeah. Fantastic. Gosh, I would do a seafood dish from Fig. Any of them, doesn't matter. All fantastic. Or even the pork, but we'll stick with seafood. Pizza from New York, because that's my jam. Grew up, outside of there. A couple of places, Prince Street Pizza maybe, doesn't matter.
Foldable.
Doesn't necessarily need to be foldable. Could be a square. Could be a Sicilian. I like them all.
Yeah, okay, so pizza.
And Prince Street Pizza is really famous for their square. But, again, they're all good. Even not the best New York pizza is still pretty dang good. Mm-hmm. What else would I do? Anything from Life Raft.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because you have to have something sweet, and she's just the best. So I'll take any of those. And
we have to ask, beverage. Is there a beverage that isn't beer?
That isn't beer. Oh, yes. My other son is a bartender at Red Drum, so we have fun crafting cocktails together and coming up with new things. So I definitely enjoy a really fun cocktail. So if it's not a beer, it probably would be something like a Jungle Bird.
Ooh,
yes.
Love.
Ooh, now I want this picnic.
Yeah, an Italian sandwich, some Life Raft treats, and a Jungle Bird.
Right.
And fish from Fig.
It seems random, but I think it works.
Hey, it doesn't seem random to me. Well, if people want to learn more about Coast Brewery and their very soon to be open, shiny new tap room in the historic Navy Yard, you can go to thesouthernfork.com and have links there as well as images so you can see the reluctant to be photographed face behind the voice of Jaime Tenny. If you like what you hear, there's a lot of beer content in the archives. There's a lot of content in the archives. We're working on, 280 plus interviews at this moment. I learned something from everyone. But I have learned a lot from you, Jaime, so thank you for teaching me through the years.
Thanks.
Yeah,
appreciate
and thanks
that.
for having me today.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
Gosh.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouthful. Coast sells all the beer that it makes, which is all the beer it can make based on the size of their current production, and they sell it just in South Carolina. They don't need to distribute outside the state at this time because South Carolina loves their beer so much. And this is a phenomenon that I've seen in other places that I've traveled. I've had wonderful beers that are only distributed inside Texas or inside Alabama. So it's a great place to look for if you're a beer drinker, those hidden gems. They're definitely not hidden to people within the state. When you're trying to discern quality and look for a quality beer in a place that you don't live, finding a beer that is canned but only sold in maybe one or two states, but definitely canned and beyond just sold in a tap room is a great place to begin. Just take it from somebody who researches this kind of thing for a living. I have had the wonderful opportunity to interview Jaime over the years, and I mentioned that on this podcast, and that is because I have covered the beer culture here in Charleston as it has grown. I've written about beer for the Post and Courier. A few years ago, Matt and Ted Lee did a wonderful piece on the beer district in Charleston for the New York Times. And recently I wrote a piece in Southern Living about Charleston and new reasons to visit, and I did include the beer culture here. The reason Coast is one of my favorites in town is not just because their beer is super high quality, but because in the middle of this scrappy build of a business that was a husband and wife team that brought on new employees slowly, they have definitely supported the community. I have seen them donate product to events. They have actually welcomed veterans into their production facility to create an honorary beer. There have even been special events there at Coast, including a fermentation workshop a few years ago that will always have a soft spot in my heart. fermentation is a wonderful rabbit hole for a person like me. So Coast not only makes super high quality beer, but they actually do it as part of a community. They don't do it in a vacuum. So thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you again soon.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?